Hey everyone, welcome back. We're diving deep into the world of Shotokan Karate today. We've got a treat lined up with Gichin Funakoshi's own autobiography.
Oh, fantastic.
A really cool YouTube documentary we found. And of course, some trusty Wikipedia entries just to make sure we've got all the bases covered. And, well, we're going to try to uncover what makes this martial art tick.
Right.
From its humble beginnings in Okinawa all the way to its global presence today.
Yeah, it's amazing how popular it's become. And to really understand Shotokan, you have to understand the man behind it, Gichin Funakoshi.
He's considered the father of modern karate, right?
Exactly.
What was surprising is that he was actually a pretty frail kid.
I wouldn't have guessed that.
Yeah, he talks about it in his autobiography. He says that practicing karate is what transformed him into the master he became, even kept him healthy his whole life.
It's true, he lived to a ripe old age.
Talk about the power of mind over matter, huh?
Absolutely. And you can't forget the influence of his upbringing. You know, Okinawa steeped in that samurai code.
Oh, right, of course.
Discipline, honor, self-control.
Yeah.
Those values, they're practically woven into Shotokan's DNA.
He even tells this funny story in his book about refusing to say the word socks. Can you believe that?
Really?
Yeah, he thought it was way too casual.
Wow.
Like it went against his samurai upbringing or something.
Talk about sticking to your principles.
No kidding. So let's talk about his teachers. Ancha Sato and Anka Itosu. They were instrumental in shaping his style.
Two sides of the same coin, in a way.
How so?
Well, Sato was all about the precision of the strikes. He'd always say, your arms and legs, they're like swords. Itosu, on the other hand, was all about building an unbreakable defense.
So like a shield versus a sword kind of thing.
Exactly.
And Funakoshi actually wrote about how Itosu could crush bamboo stalks with his bare hands.
Wow.
This guy was the real deal.
No doubt. And you can see those contrasting influences in Shotokan today. It's got that swiftness, that piercing quality from Sato, but also that emphasis on powerful blocks and stances from Itosu.
A perfect balance.
Precisely.
But here's the thing. Funakoshi wasn't content with keeping karate confined to Okinawa.
Right. He wanted to share it with the world.
Exactly. And he set his sights on mainland Japan.
Bold move.
Oh, yeah. In the early 1900s, no less.
It was a different time back then.
Public demonstrations, invitations from the Ministry of Education. He even got the attention of Jigoro Kano, the founder of judo.
Wow.
Talk about a pivotal moment for karate.
Absolutely pivotal. But Funakoshi, he was smart. He knew that to make karate work in Japan, he'd have to adapt it, make it fit with the culture and the politics of the time.
That makes sense.
So that's when he changed the name from Chinese hand to empty hand.
To karate.
To karate, exactly. Less likely to ruffle any feathers that way. And he adopted the colored belt system from judo.
Ah, that's where that came from.
It was a strategic move that helped shape karate's structure as we know it.
And speaking of names, did you know that Funakoshi never actually set out to create a style called Shotokan?
Really?
Yeah, he just called it karate.
Huh.
It was his students who came up with the name Shotokan.
How so?
Well, the YouTube documentary explains it pretty well. They combined his pen name, Shoto, which means pine waves, with Kod, meaning hall or school.
So Shotokan, the Hall of Pine Waves.
Exactly. And get this, Shoto was inspired by his love of poetry.
That's amazing.
Talk about an accidental branding success story, right?
You could say that again.
Yeah.
But it makes you think about the evolution of martial arts. How something starts one way can transform into something completely different.
Absolutely.
And that's certainly true for Shotokan. I mean, it's become one of the most popular styles of karate worldwide.
It really has.
But it's interesting to consider the differences between Okinawan karate and how it evolved in mainland Japan.
Like how so?
Well, Okinawan karate, it's more about practical self-defense, less formal, less emphasis on competition.
Interesting.
Whereas Japanese karate, Shotokan included, it tends to be more structured, more focused on
Yeah,
competition.
two sides of the same coin again.
Exactly.
And its reach went way beyond Japan, too. The YouTube documentary talked about how it even influenced Korean martial arts.
Like Tang Soo Do, for example.
Right. It's pretty amazing how interconnected it all is.
Definitely. But even within Shotokan itself, there are variations.
Really?
Yeah. You had Funakoshi, who always emphasized a softer approach, more holistic. Remember, he saw karate as a way of life.
Right.
But his son Jigo, he was more into the competitive side of things.
So like two branches growing from the same tree.
Exactly. And that tension between the traditional softer style and the more modern competitive one, it's been there all along.
That's fascinating.
Shows you that even within one style, there's room for different interpretations.
And it all comes back to Funakoshi's idea that karate is about so much more than just fighting.
He really believed that.
He called it a way of life, right? Self-defense, sure, but also personal growth, courtesy, respect.
But the whole package, it's like that concept of empty hand. It's not just about physical techniques.
What else is it then?
It's about emptying your mind, too, letting go of ego and aggression.
So it's about inner peace.
Exactly.
I like that. And, he gives this great example in his book about being considerate at a public bathhouse.
A bathhouse.
Yeah. Like, don't leave the dipper dirty for the next person.
Oh, right.
Basic manners.
Yeah, makes sense.
But for Funakoshi, it showed how these principles could apply to everyday life.
I see.
Be mindful. Be respectful.
No matter where you are. It's a good reminder that mastery isn't just about physical skill.
There's more to it.
It's about ethical conduct responsibility, taking that respect with you everywhere.
Speaking of physical skill, though, let's talk about some of the techniques Funakoshi describes.
I was wondering when we'd get to that.
He goes into a lot of detail about different hand strikes.
Oh, yeah, like what?
Well, there's the Sik in the regular fist.
Right.
The Yorike in the back fist.
Right.
And the Tetsui, the hammer fist.
Sounds intense.
It's amazing how much thought goes into each one.
Years of practice to perfect those.
And then there's the Nukite.
The what?
The Nukite, it's a spear hand strike.
You mean using your fingertips?
Exactly.
Wow, sounds kind of fragile.
You'd think so, right?
Yeah.
But Funakoshi says with the right training, it can be incredibly effective.
Huh. That's really interesting. The human body's capable of so much.
That's for sure. And speaking of training, he talks about this really cool tool called the Makiwara.
The Makiwara.
Yeah, it's like a padded striking post for developing power and technique.
Interesting. Have you ever used one?
I haven't, but I've heard they're no joke.
They're not. It takes a lot of control and focus to use one properly.
Funakoshi goes into a lot of detail about the proper way to use it, the stance, the hip movement, even this corkscrew motion with your punch.
It sounds complicated.
It's all about refining those strikes. It's like a dance with a purpose, right?
Exactly. You're coordinating your whole body for that one powerful strike. And the Makiwara, it helps you develop that coordination. Plus, it strengthens your bones and tendons.
It's got to take some serious discipline, though. It's not just about hitting it as hard as you can.
Not at all. It's about consistency, dedication. Honing that focus and control.
And that reminds me of something you said earlier.
Yeah.
About Shotokan being more than just physical.
Right. It's about the mental game, too.
Exactly. So we started with this frail kid from Okinawa.
Right.
And now we're talking about a global martial art.
It's pretty remarkable when you think about it.
With a whole philosophy behind it.
It really is a testament to Funakoshi's vision.
It makes you wonder how relevant are these teachings today?
Oh, I think they're more relevant than ever.
Yeah.
In a world that feels so chaotic at times,
right.
Shotokan, it offers this path to finding balance within yourself and in how you interact with others.
And you don't have to be a karate master to apply these principles.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. That discipline you need for the Makiwara, that translates to any goal you're working towards.
That's a good point.
And the courtesy Funakoshi talked about, that's just about being more mindful in your everyday life.
It all comes back to respect, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Even that story about Master Matsumura winning a fight without striking a blow.
Oh, what was that about again?
It's a perfect example of self-control, choosing a peaceful solution.
It's like what they say, the best way to win a fight is to avoid it altogether.
That's something like that.
Well, I'd say we've covered a lot of ground today. From the history of Shotokan
to the philosophy.
To those fascinating techniques. But really, this is just the beginning, right?
It is.
So for anyone listening, we'll leave you with this. How can you embody the spirit of Shotokan in your own life? What lessons resonated with you today? Because this deep dive, it's just the first step on your journey